Hello! Today's video I think is going to be really useful. I can't find another one like it on YouTube. And it's to teach you how to write a dual narrative story. And this is because structure scores so highly in your GCSE question 5 question where you have the opportunity to write a story. A dual narrative is told from two different perspectives with two different characters. And I thought this would be too difficult to do in 40 minutes. However, I teach in a fantastic English department, and two of our teachers actually decided to sit the mock exams with the Year 11s this year to find out what can and can't be done. So you're about to see a teacher story genuinely written under time conditions. It is, of course, a grade 9, even though it has things that I'd want to change. But that's not the point. It's done under exam conditions with all the techniques that you could possibly want to get your grade 9. Well, the task was this. You have been invited to produce a piece of creative writing about how children play imaginatively. Write a story about a game that goes badly wrong. The story we'll look at is only that long. I've shrunk it down so you can see how much text there is, and it'll be 553 words long, something that you could reach in your 40 minutes of writing in the exam. I've coded it with the 10 different skills that I want to teach you from this story. And you can see just by looking at the underlinings and the colours that this writer has used these sorts of techniques in every single paragraph and probably in every single sentence. And that's what's going to get you the top marks, constantly thinking about your craft as a writer, using techniques all the time. If you go down to the description below the video, you can copy and paste these 10 skills that I'm going to teach you about the writer's craft. And then there are a further 5 skills which are present by omission. In other words, the writer has deliberately left these things out. And these are things that student writers in particular often get wrong before they become really good at story writing. I'll read through each paragraph and then we'll look at the list of skills. The scarf, although bloodstained now, still smelt of the young girl's sweet scent. Sauntering down the dark midnight streets towards the dilapidated building, he deposited the scarf calmly into the nearby bin. He contemplated disposing of his slim steel blade as well, but the trusty tool had served him excellently. Pocketing it safely instead, he reminisced gloriously about the previous time he had used it. So in green, we have the use of contrast and juxtaposition. Most teachers don't teach this, but good writers do it all the time because it creates tension and conflict. So the knife is blood-stained now, and that's contrasted with the girl's sweet scent. So we understand from that he has probably killed her with the knife. Then we have the scarf, which he's holding calmly, and that's contrasted to his trusty tool, which has been used to kill her. And we got that contrast between the calm here and the violence of how he's used the knife. Next, we have ambitious vocabulary, sauntering, dilapidated, reminisced. This writer's clearly thinking about using a really formal vocabulary as early as possible to impress the examiner. Often you'll find that novice writers overdo the sense of smell, but here we have an expert writer who picks on the other sense, the sense of touch. The reason the sense of touch is a better sense to play with is that it's much more subtle. I'll show you what I mean. So here, the slim steel of the knife conveys to us what it must feel like. We can possibly feel its coldness from steel, and we can feel how easily it fits into his hand or to be disguised so the victim doesn't see it coming. This is a really clever way of introducing this sort of 3D element to your description, so the reader can feel it. without you spelling out the knife felt like blah blah blah. And that's why it's such a sophisticated technique. It's an example of how you show and don't tell. Because she's describing, she wants to show off her use of adverbs, excellently, safely, gloriously. Now, this is something that I would recommend that you don't do. And when I redraft this in a later video, you'll see why. Stephen King, one of the greatest horror writers ever, actually gets rid of all the adverbs in his books before he publishes them, because they slow the pace down and they tell the reader stuff that we can already work out. In other words, they tell instead of show. Next, I'm going to show you the alliteration and consonants. This is all the stuff that's underlined. And she does this brilliantly, particularly with sibilance. Sibilance is the alliteration of the S sound, and it can often be used to be sinister. It's like the hiss of a snake, if you like. The other way of using it is to suggest calmness. So it's like the sound of waves on a beach. She uses it here to be sinister, scarf, stained, and that's contrasted with the sweetness of sweet scent and sauntering. So very skillful use of sibilance, used both ways. To be harsh, look at the harsh C and T sound there, and then the gentle W and the gentle vowels, that perfect contrast between violence and gentleness, which is captured in these two perspectives, the killer and the girl who's going to die. Then we have some rather harsh sounding D's. Down the dark, it's got a sense of finality to it, emphasizing how she's going to be killed. And then we've got quite a few D's also emphasizing that, with the D in towards, dilapidated, it's got 3 of them, building, deposited with 2. Really heavy percussive sounds that emphasize what her fate's going to be. The pure adrenaline rush he received after each use was addictive, if not more addictive than a line of premium quality cocaine. He could still smell the aromatic scent of blood wafting from his previous victim, and the surge of electrifying power he felt after each encounter. Once again, I'm going to go in with the juxtaposition because that's the most skillful technique. So we've got his electrifying power, which he has used to kill her, and then this contrast of the euphemism. And instead of murder, the writer uses the word encounter, and perhaps to show how the killer himself doesn't see it as wrong. He sees it as something innocent, almost like a date. We obviously have ambitious vocabulary with surge. Again, you've got the sibilance that you'll notice. Still, smell, scent, giving us that continuity with the paragraph before. We don't have the sense of touch here, but we do have the sense of smell. Again, this writer is putting it in because she feels she has to for a piece of descriptive writing, and I think she overdoes it here. So if she'd just started with the aromatic scent of blood, we would know that she was smelling it. He was smelling it, and we don't need the word wafting because it's kind of wrong here. We expect that from the smell of cooking, really. Doesn't quite fit. But I point this out in order to show you that your writing doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to keep thinking about the effect on the reader by using these techniques. As the wondrous memories ran through his brain like a high-speed train, he found himself at the door. Opening it furtively, he went inside and collected his scant belongings. She would be found in a few hours, and by then he would be long gone. So again, you can see how sophisticated this writing is by the number of times she uses contrast here. So she's going to be found, obviously dead, but he's going to be long gone and still alive. You can see the vocabulary choices that she's making. Again, one single adverb here rather than a list of them, which is better, and it gives us an idea of how secretive he's being now, because it emphasizes that he'll probably get away with it. We have the simile, like a high-speed train, which also conveys the way he's obsessing about the murder. He's thinking about all these girls that he's killed. The train itself, a high-speed train, is dangerous. So it's a really well-chosen simile. It adds a lot to the description. The squeals and shouts of the fairgoers permeated the balmy evening. It was Rosie's 13th birthday, and the first day of the summer holidays. 6 long weeks of glorious freedom stretched interminably out in front of her. For the first time, her parents had let her out on her own at night with her mates, and she was having such a fun time. Admittedly, the fun had been helped by the large bottle of vodka her friends had persuaded her to steal stealthily from her parents' cabinet. Once again, notice the vocabulary choices: permeated, balmy, interminably, admittedly, stealthily. Again, these are quite a few adverbs that she's using, but we've also got a lot of contrast again. So her 13th birthday, showing how young she is, but also the writer, I think, has deliberately chosen the age of 13 instead of 14 because we subconsciously associate 13 with bad luck. And that's contrasted with the long weeks that she's looking forward to, but we know she's not going to get because she's going to die. This is a really interesting word choice. So terminus means ending. It's related, of course, to the train simile that we had earlier. But to terminate, terminal, means to end. So in that word, you've also got the word ending, which, of course, links semantically, doesn't it, in the same semantic field as death. So really clever use of vocabulary there. Here we have the fun had been helped, so the fun of the fair, but that's contrasted immediately with her stealing the vodka. And there is a slight sense that she's put herself in danger here. She wouldn't be killed unless she had been immoral in this way. It's a bit of a very harsh morality tale that we've got on here. So her parents have trusted her and she's betrayed them. And well, look what's going to happen to you, girl. You're going to get killed. That's not really what the story's about, but there's a slight allusion to that. And that works really well. It's a literary reference, if you like. And then once again, we have the sibilance. So the surroundings of the fairground here become more threatening. The sibilance of squeals and shouts. So that we pick up this vibe, if you like, this mood of her impending death. Taking a quick swig of the vodka, Rosie felt a warm, fuzzy feeling suffusing through her body after the warm, tantalizing liquid had trickled down her throat. Giggling, she passed the bottle on to her friends and joined them in the long, serpentine queue for the waltzers. Again, you can see the use of ambitious vocabulary. And then we have the contrast, where she's giggling, which is contrasted to what she's just done, stolen the vodka, and is also contrasting to the fuzzy feeling, which is obviously going to get her drunk and she's going to make mistakes. That's at least what the reader is predicting. Again, you've got the alliteration here, fuzzy feelings. This is used ironically because whenever our mouth makes the F sound, this fricative, we bare our teeth and it becomes a threatening gesture. And so alliteration with the F is normally threatening here, but it's used to describe something that's not threatening, fuzzy feelings. But of course, this will be threatening because it's this fuzziness that's going to lead her to make the mistakes that get her killed. And then we've got this really interesting use of metaphor here that The Q is serpentine, so like a serpent. And obviously we associate the serpent with danger, with poison. And so although the Q is long, that's what its first meaning is, and twisting, by reminding us of the snake, it's also reminding us of her impending death, that she's going to be a victim. He was prowling through the fields behind the fair, when the fizzing lights and childish laughter drew him in, like a moth entranced by lurid light. The air was rich with pungent spice, and the intoxicating smell of diesel oil and brandy snap. Warm and sugared fear coated the children's faces, as their feigned screams splintered through the air like exploding dynamite. Well, if you were just going to learn from one paragraph, this would be it. You can see how packed it is full of techniques, and it works because of that, almost like poetry. Well, let's take a look. It starts off with the metaphor of him as a hunter, like an animal. It works perfectly. He was prowling. Then we've got the fricatives of field and fair and fizzing. Again, you can start to hear the violence of that as he approaches. The metaphor of the lights fizzing really kind of gives us an image of what's going on inside this killer's brain. He's becoming excited. Then we have the alliteration of laughter, lights, like, lurid, building us up towards this climax where she's going to be killed. Excellent vocabulary choice with lurid, and lurid is also, there's an idea of it being corrupt and wrong, which links us both to the killer and to our victim who's done something wrong. The air was rich with pungent, excellent descriptive word that gives us that sense of smell, as does spice, as does intoxicating. Then we've got this wonderful contrast here between spice, which is lovely, and then the diesel oil. And this is a great way to reveal his character. He likes things that most of us wouldn't like. We wouldn't like the smell of diesel oil. There's something wrong with him, in other words, which is obviously reflected in his desire to kill. Then we have two similes. Like a moth entranced by lurid light. That's quite brilliant, I think. He's entranced almost as though he can't control his own actions. He's just desperate to kill. And like exploding dynamite, obviously we associate with death. And so it fits perfectly with what's going on here. Then we've also got this, actually I should have highlighted that as a contrast. It's actually an oxymoron, isn't it? So the screams are not real, they're feigned, they're imaginary. Really effective here. It comes back to that title of the piece where it had to be based on a child's game. So we feel its childishness even at the same time as we realize those screams are going to become real when she's killed. And then there's this beautifully sophisticated image of touch here. Warm and sugar-coated, warm and sugared fear coated the children's faces. This use of the abstract noun is marvelous. It really does do that job of showing and not telling. So again, it's an oxymoron. We get the contrast between the sugar, which is pleasant, and the fear, which is unpleasant. Really brilliant juxtaposition here. And we can imagine that they've been eating candy floss, coating their faces. But this clever idea, instead of saying it was the candy floss, having it as sugared fear, also gives us the expression on their face, and it works perfectly with the idea that at least one of them is going to be a victim. Moving closer towards the rides, he saw her, the young girl from Whitcross Road. He had spent weeks now heading down the street, hoping to catch a glimpse of her silken alabaster skin through the half-closed curtains of her bedroom window. Now he couldn't believe his sheer good luck. She was quite clearly inebriated, and this was clearly the opportunity he had been waiting for. So in this paragraph, I really want to draw you to the excellent use of touch again. So when she describes the skin as silken, it doesn't just show that it's smooth. We can imagine what that feels like. And again, the alabaster skin gives us its whiteness, but we also can feel how cool it is, like an alabaster statue. We then have that soft sibilance of the S sound, which mimics the softness of the skin. So really, really brilliant use of description to give us that sense of touch. And then this fabulous word here, sheer, here means very good luck. But if we think of sheer as a material, again, that gives us the smoothness of silk again, because that comes from the same semantic field as silken. So quite a brilliant word choice there, because it gives us an image of this touch, again, through showing, not telling. The waltzers, although excellent fun at the time, had made Rosie feel extremely queasy, and her white porcelain skin had turned a putrid shade. Stumbling off the ride breathlessly, Rosie was the first victim for a game of hide and seek. Although her whole world was still spinning furiously from the ride, her friends tied her oversized scarf around her eyes, spun her again, and ran off squealing and shouting. Count to 20, then find us if you can. Well, again, we can see this brilliant vocabulary, putrid and porcelain and queasy, full of juxtaposition here. So the fun is contrasted with the queasiness. The skin is porcelain, which is then contrasted with this putrid shade. So it's now suddenly miscolored. She is a victim of a game, but we know she's also going to be a victim of death. And then we've got this contrast here. Find us if you can, because we know they won't. She won't find them. That she's probably going to be killed before that. And once again, we've got this brilliant use of a word that gives us the idea of touch. So the porcelain skin, again, doesn't just give us the whiteness, it gives us an element of coldness in the skin, and also its fragility. We can feel how easy it is to break. In other words, that's a metaphor for her life. We can feel how easy it is to break her. Rosie never found her friends. Before she had even counted to 5, she crumbled like dust into a tangled heap on the muddy ground, hidden from view. Hours later she would be found, soiled and crumpled like a fallen glove, with a scarf missing and her head battered to a pulp. Well, again, we've got that contrast that she's not found by her friends, but she is found. Should have made that in green as well. But she's found dead. We've got these brilliant references to touch again. Crumpled like dust. We can feel how quickly she's disintegrating, but dust obviously has an allusion to death. You're familiar with the phrase ashes to ashes and dust to dust. Tangled gives us the feeling of pain as she's fallen. It sounds painful, and we can almost feel the ground because we find out it's muddy. Soiled and crumpled also gives us the idea of how she's just in a heap, not naturally so. So once she's dead, we can actually feel the dirt on her, possibly the blood, but it's not spelled out to us. So again, we're being shown and not told. If she's crumpled, we can imagine her being cut or with bones broken. We can just picture that without being told. And then finally, this horrible image of the head battered to a pulp. You can feel what a pulp is like, that sort of jelly-like mass, as though we can actually reach in and touch her brain as it's been mashed in front of us. Quite disgusting, but very effective, because that texture is revealed through showing. We're not told what it's like. It's not spelt out. We obviously have 2 similes. I've talked about this one already. Like a fallen glove is brilliant because it conveys to us the idea of the hand that killed her, that was probably wearing a glove. So it reminds us of him. but it no longer has the hand inside it, and she is like the glove. She's just the outer coating, the skin, which no longer has the life inside her. So it's a beautifully done. The missing scarf knits us back towards the beginning where it began with the scarf. So we've got this kind of circular pattern to our story, and by the time we get here, we realize that she was the original victim. Well, because I didn't want to make this too long a video, I haven't concentrated on the complex sentences that need at least 2 commas. There are 8 of them. You'll see them with the numbers. I just spotted another one earlier on that I should have numbered and didn't. And that's a really powerful technique to show your control of sentences to the examiner, and also to slow down time, because we're waiting for the murder, and the more that the writer slows that down, the more anticipation we have. Finally, I want to re-emphasize the most important technique here is the use of contrast and juxtaposition that happens all the way through. That's what creates the tension. And the other thing that marks it out as a really skilled piece of writing is this sense of touch that is alluded to all the way through. Okay, you're on the home straight now, but it's really worthwhile thinking about the things that this writer has left out. So she doesn't name any of the other friends, and that's because in 500 odd words, you've only really got time to concentrate on 2 main characters. So she really does focus on just those 2. Likewise, although the parents are important, references to them are minimal. Another writer would have had some sort of conversation when she last saw her parents, which would have been a lovely contrast to the murder that was going to happen, but that would have made the story too long, and she didn't need it here, so she got rid of the parents. Dialogue would have slowed down the action. There was only that one little bit of dialogue as the girls call out to be found. Actually, we didn't even need that dialogue, but it was so short that it was easy to include. Often writers put in dialogue to help you see what's going on, and that comes from watching too much TV, where people are obviously following a script. In a story, you don't need the dialogue unless it's really important, and this writer has cleverly ditched it. There isn't an explanation at the beginning. That is a sign of brilliant writing, where you start straight in with the action and we have to catch up. Yeah, if we jump up here, we've got we don't even know who's there. We just know that there's a bloodstained scarf. But from that, we can infer that there's been a killing. We hear about the young girl. We can infer she is the victim. We've got this mysterious he. We can infer he's the killer. None of this is explained to us. We just jump in straight on the action, but there are so many clues that we can work it out. And that's what good writing does. It invites the reader to work things out, but gives them enough clues to do so. It's not a puzzle. It's not something that can be interpreted in lots of different ways. You know, the reader gets there. And another interesting structural technique is that she gets rid of the chronological order. So the ending happens at the beginning, and then the rest is done in a kind of flashback. So that's a very sophisticated way of writing. I didn't think she'd be able to pull this off under exam conditions, but now you've seen how it can be done. I would have been skeptical about doing it myself, but now I think I'll give it a go. Okay, to finish, we just need to look at the mark scheme. So the content, register, so the language choice, convincing and compelling for the audience. Yes, it was. Was there ambitious vocabulary? Yes. You can see why I started with that as number 1. Sustained crafting of linguistic devices. Well, numbers 2 to 10 were all linguistic devices, and you could see it must be sustained because they were in practically every sentence. The structural features that need to be varied. Well, you had the dual narrative and starting with the ending. Was it compelling? Yes, that use of contrast and juxtaposition all the way through always makes it compelling and always makes it complex. Was it convincing? Well, there was nothing in there that didn't sound as though it could happen, and so it was convincing. Fluently linked paragraphs, well, basically if you're paragraphing, you know if they're fluently linked, if they can't be put in a different order, and you can see that that story had an order which made sense all the way through. So that made it compelling and convincing and would give it top marks. As you know, you are also marked on technical accuracy, and this is something that you should practice. The wide range of punctuation is used. Hopefully you notice the colons and semicolons and correct use of commas. I didn't point that out as we went. Lots of complex sentences, some short ones for effect. Using standard English consistently, so that ambitious vocabulary that we saw in content also gets rewarded in technical accuracy. So that counts double. Think about your language choice because that's going to get you the marks twice. You have to have complex grammatical structures, so you have to be writing in complex sentences. Simple as that. Using colons and semicolons and commas accurately will force you to use complex grammatical structures. So just a little reminder to yourself to use colons and semicolons will force you to get these marks. Obviously, you have to be accurate in spelling. And again, the ambitious use of vocabulary is there. So actually, it occurs 3 times, twice in the technical accuracy and once in content. No, I've lied. It's twice in content. So here it is, ambitious vocabulary there. But it's also here with your choice of register. So you can see how vocabulary is the most important thing that's rewarded in this question. Well, congratulations if you've got to the end of the video. The next thing to do is subscribe, and the thing to do after that is go and write a story with a dual narrative. If you succeed, post it on my channel. I might make you a video.